Coming to paperback and Kindle Unlimited, Isis, All That Glitters. The goddess next door takes on a bikini-clad bank robber in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, All That Glitters in paperback and Kindle Unlimited this March. I just saw the teaser trailer for DC's new The Joker movie, and I have to ask a question. Is this a Joker movie, or is it Ronald McDonald on LSD? Because after looking at this teaser trailer, I have to believe somebody was on that stuff when they greenlit this hot mess, calling itself a movie. Now, this so-called The Joker movie is supposed to be, as I see it, loosely based on your Alan Moore and Brian Bolland's iconic Batman story, Batman: The Killing Joke. And they're supposed to be making this film based on the elements of the story which dealt with the origin of the Joker in this story, who is supposed to be a nameless, faceless, failed comedian who is trying to make a living the best way he can. And that in that scenario, we have this guy who he's gotten his wife pregnant and he wants to find a way to make a living for himself. So he's really desperate, so he winds up getting involved with these two criminals. And after he gets involved with those two criminals, they come up with a plan to dress him up as the Red Hood, the leader of a criminal gang in Gotham. And the plan is that they're going to march across the gangplanks of the Axis chemical plant in order to rob the bank on the other side of the chemical plant. Unfortunately, what happens to this failed comedian is that he winds up the police wind up getting involved, they wind up killing the two criminals, and then he winds up getting confronted by the Batman, who believes that he is the real Red Hood. And after this confrontation with the Batman, this bumbling, stumbling, failed comedian winds up falling into this vat of chemical waste, and then after he takes off the Red Hood helmet, he finds out that his skin has been completely discolored by the chemicals from the Axis chemical plant. And his hair has been turned green, his lips are red, and this is the thing that takes this deeply troubled man and leads to him becoming completely psychotic. Now, that origin was adapted partially in 1989's Batman, where they altered things a bit by making him Jack Napier, one of the Carl Grissom's enforcers. And we got to see that adaptation come to life, and we got to see this hard, cynical mobster become the Joker. But in this film, we get this guy who is a failed comedian. We get the failed comedian part, but we don't get any of the other elements that really show us who the Joker really is. And that's where this adaptation is going to fall apart, because without the critical element of Batman, you can't really have a Joker origin story, because the Joker's Batman is integral to the Joker's origin story, because it's Batman confronting the Red Hood, which leads to him falling into the vat of chemical waste and having the psychotic break afterward, which leads to him becoming the Joker, and then your Joker then having that obsession with getting revenge on Batman. So all of this is integral to the story, but these New Jack producers, they want to come in and reinvent a wheel that does not need to be reinvented. The classic origin of the Joker is perfect in every way, shape, and form, and it does not need to be changed. But here we have Warner Brothers going out here trying to change something and reinvent it when it doesn't need to be reinvented. Now, even worse than this adaptation is they're changing the setting of the time to the 1980s. Now, one of the things that made the Burton film perfect was the fact that they made everything in a sort of timeless way. So yes, we got that gothic looking setting, but that timelessness is that we just got to see all these elements come together, because it was like a live action comic book. But this film wants to take us into 1981 and say that this is the year that the Joker had his origin. Now, as someone who grew up during 1981, I can tell you that this film really misses the mark, because in order to understand the 1980s, you have to understand the decade that came before it, the 1970s, and you have to understand the failure of the Jimmy Carter presidency and how that led to the country winding up in a recession, and a lot of people feeling hopeless because this recession wound up with a lot of people losing their jobs and things like that. And that's what led to Jimmy Carter being kicked out of the White House, and Ronald Reagan coming into the White House, and a lot of people feeling upset about Reaganomics, especially poor people, because he was doing things that people didn't like from Reaganomics, where people were getting laid off. So there was a lot of despair, there was a lot of hopelessness, and they were trying to put that in the film, but again, they just don't really set the elements because they never lived in the period or did the research from that period. And that attempt to try to make the film 80s, it just doesn't really work with the story. When it comes down to the Joker story, we need those fantastical, exaggerated elements from the Burton film in order for those elements to work. But for this film, they want to give us this Joker in the 80s, and it just comes across, again, like Ronald McDonald on LSD. He just does not come across like the Joker everybody knows, the man with chalk white skin, ruby lips, and green hair. We don't get to see the Joker we all knew. We get this mishmash of The Killing Joke with Heath Ledger's Joker, with Joaquin Phoenix playing this mishmashed character, and we get these elements of identity politics shoved into this trailer, which really, I really am deeply disgusted by, because at this point, I wish Hollywood would just get over the fact that Hillary Clinton lost and really stop it with shoving in the Trump bashing, because in the place of your Donald Trump, we have Thomas Wayne as Gotham's version of the bad Orange Man, and we have them trying to make a commentary with the Thomas Wayne at running for mayor about dealing with the bad Orange Man. And I really wish they would just stop it with this stuff, because Thomas Wayne was a noble man, Thomas Wayne was a good man, Thomas Wayne was an honorable man, and he passed those values down to his son Bruce, who took those core values that he got from his mother and father as part of the foundation for him going on this mission to declare war on crime after their tragic deaths. And I really am not a fan of them putting in this commentary regarding Thomas Wayne. I'm not a fan of this identity politics being shoved in a Batman movie, which is what a Joker movie is. And I'm not a fan of the Joker out here simping over a single mom and dating a single mom. Again, this just does not fit who the Joker is, because even though he was a failed comic before, I just don't see this as something that is critical to the core element of his story, and it's an attempt to bring forced diversity into the Joker's story where it just does not belong. When it comes down to the Joker story, I just say, if you're going to adapt The Killing Joke, adapt it straight. Don't try to call yourself being cute and fancy by trying to take these pot shots at Donald Trump. Don't try to be cute and fancy by trying to force diversity in a place where you're going to put this passive-aggressively put this stereotype in the film where you have this black single mother in the film. And don't try to do a Joker movie without Batman, because again, in order for there to be a Joker, you need to have Batman, because again, it is that confrontation with the Red Hood, and Batman having that confrontation with the Red Hood, which leads to this anonymous criminal winding up falling into that vat and then becoming the homicidal maniac known as the Joker. If you don't have those elements in the story, then it's not a Joker story. And then you have Warner Brothers sitting here talking about this is an alternate universe, and if you're going to say it's an alternate universe, then what's going to happen is the customer is going to decide to take their money and spend it on alternatives on October 4th. And I think that Warner Brothers Studios knows they have a lemon on their hands, and this is why they are releasing it on October 4th, because in the movie schedules for film, if you see a film that's being released late September, early October, that is a sign that the studio has absolutely no faith in that film, and that they are literally taking out the trash because the summer movie season has ended, and now they're getting ready to take the garbage out. And that's what this film looks like to me. It looks like absolute garbage. And it's really sad because Warner Brothers was starting to wind up on a bit of a roll with the success of Wonder Woman, the success of Aquaman, and possibly Shazam. It looked like they were starting to build some momentum, and they were starting to get competitive in the superhero game. Then they come out with this hot mess of a movie calling itself The Joker, and this is the type of film that makes people apprehensive about coming out to go see DC films. I know many DC fans out there, they want to see a great adaptation of DC superheroes, and they want an adaptation that stays true to the spirit of DC superheroes. But what really discourages a lot of DC Comics fans is these adaptations where they start taking these derivative turns, and they start trying to get cute and fancy by rewriting elements of the source material. And it's this type of film, like this Joker, which makes us think about really terrible DC films like your Batman Forever and your Batman and Robin, or your 2004's Catwoman, which went so completely off the script, it wasn't even funny. I mean, that movie went so far off the script that it wasn't even a Catwoman movie. It was a Catwoman in name only movie. And this film is a Joker movie as I see it, but it's a Joker movie in name only because it doesn't have any of the elements of the Joker that we all know all about and have seen throughout the almost 80-year history of the character. So when I look at this movie, it's just one big joke, and it shows that many people at Warner Brothers still don't take the craft of superhero filmmaking very seriously. And while they think they're going to get the last laugh on moviegoers by releasing this movie on October 4th, the joke is on them if they think that then a big audience is going to come out here to go see this hot mess of a movie. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, The Temptation of John Haynes, and the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.